right, so you remember the trucker freedom convoy that happened in Canada. Now, the organizers of that protest have started trial today. That's right, they have been criminalized and they are now facing some serious consequences, some jail time, maybe even prison time. Tamara Leach is one of the organizers, as well as Chris Barber, and they were the ones who really organized this. Tamara has been a protester for quite some time. She was part of the Yellow Vests movement in Canada. She also was part of a kind of a separatist movement in Canada to kind of break away certain parts of Canada from the rest. But you know, she's a known organizer and somebody that they've wanted to silence for a long time. She's run for political office. They don't, you know, the establishment in Canada doesn't really like her much, and they've been looking for a way to silence her. And the Trucker Freedom Convoy was just the perfect opportunity to continue going after her. So she has been charged, and she's now on trial starting today. She was charged with counseling mischief, counseling to obstruct police, obstructing police, counseling intimidation, and intimidation. So telling people to do the thing and doing the thing, and that's mischief, obstructing police, intimidation, and obstructing one or more highways is what that she's been charged with. Her counterpart, Chris Barber, who also helped organize the Freedom Convoy, has been charged with counseling to commit mischief, counseling to disobey a court order, and counseling to obstruct police. Now, all of these are misdemeanors, and Tamira, I'm trying to pronounce her name right. It's pronounced a little differently than it's spelt. She's already served 42 days in jail at this point, and they're wanting to continue to throw her into jail, making an example out of her, that she's not allowed to organize protests, that people shouldn't be organizing protests against the government. How dare you protest the tyranny of the government? And if you protest the tyranny of the government, then we're going to be more tyrannical and throw you in jail, is what they're saying. There is a fundraiser, by the way, for her. I actually have not put that in the description. I will put that in there as soon as we're done with the live show. I'll put the link in there for you to donate to help pay for her legal fees. It says the Democracy Fund, a Canadian charity, is supporting Tamira Leach by crowdfunding her legal bills. The cost of expert legal representation is $300,000. Imagine that, $300,000 for these misdemeanors. This is where they're really trying to get her. So it's not even so much the actual charges, but they know that they're going to put her in a 4-week trial, and she's going to have to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars that she cannot afford. And they're just going to bankrupt her and basically make an example out of her, that not only will you be sitting in jail, not only will you be a criminal, have a criminal record, but on top of that, you're going to be flat broke. You're going to have to file bankruptcy. So they're saying that Tamara, an ordinary mom and grandma from Medicine Hat, Alberta, cannot afford this. But we have a secret weapon. Lawrence Greenspoon, one of Ottawa's top lawyers, is on Tamara's side. Lawrence is accustomed to handling complex and serious cases, but his team is expensive and they're worth every penny. If you can, please chip in to help cover Tamira's legal fees. They are looking for $300,000 in donations. They've reached 85%. So a lot of people supporting Tamira, as they should, really put on that trucker convoy. It was a great example of freedom, and many of us really appreciated it. I know a lot of people were annoyed by it, but many of us actually really appreciated that protest. So we wish her the best of luck in this trial that started today. We'll be following it. We'll let you know the progress of it. We'll let you know it's clear probably what the outcome is going to be. I think all of us can guess she's probably going to be found guilty. And then the question will be, how much time will they then sentence her, or what will they sentence her? You know, will it be money that she has to pay or more time in jail? That's unclear, but we will keep you posted on all of that. But yeah, unfortunately, her saga is still going on. Many of us thought that it was done. And unfortunately for Tamira and for Chris, it is not. Another person, let's move on to this. This is kind of a crazy story. So Enrique Tarrio is the Proud Boy. He was like the Proud Boy leader. He was arrested for January 6th. The story gets a little crazy though, and we're going to get deeper into this, but he was arrested for January 6th. And today he has been sentenced to 22 years for sedition, essentially. So they're saying that he tried to overthrow the government and they've now sentenced him to 22 years. There are lots of people who commit way worse crimes, violent crimes. They actually hurt people, they rape people, they murder people, and they don't get 22 years. But Enrique Tarrio, the Proud Boy leader, gets 22 years in prison today. But let's go over some of the facts of what has actually what he did. I mean, what did he do to earn 22 years in prison for sedition? I would think you'd have to have a lot of evidence against him that he actually tried to overthrow the government, that he was very much involved. There would have to be weapons. I would think that he riled people up and brought them in. But here's just a general breakdown. First of all, Enrique Tarrio wasn't even there on January 6th. He wasn't at the Capitol. He wasn't even in DC on January 6th. And yet he has now been handed the longest sentence of anybody who has been charged and persecuted for January 6th. This is the longest sentence, and he wasn't even there. So what do they claim he did? The trial lasted 3 months. They had dozens of witnesses, and the evidence against him included messages in group chats. They said that there were a lot of messages of him basically telling people, what they were trying to allege. Successfully, they did, clearly, because he ended up being found guilty, and now they've sentenced him to 22 years. So I would say it was successful in that they were able to win the case. I don't know if it's successful in that there was really truly enough evidence to actually convict him. I would think that this could be appealed and made, but then again, this is such a political persecution. I don't know exactly what's going to happen to him, but what they're trying to claim is that he convened what he called a Ministry of Self-Defense, or the MOSD, which would coordinate with himself and other Proud Boys regarding January 6th. He had been banned from being in DC because of a previous legal, he'd been barred from DC by a judge, and so he was not in the area. But he was chatting with other Proud Boys, and so what they were trying to claim was that he coordinated the attack on the Capitol, that he planned an overthrow of the government. To be found guilty and sentenced to 22 years for sedition, they would have to say you planned an overthrow, an attempted overthrow, and you directed people to do this. But they never really found any evidence of that in the entire case. They found that he had convened this Ministry of Self-Defense, which was to coordinate Proud Boys leadership on January 6th. The chats showed that he was stationed in a Baltimore hotel room, and that he supposedly encouraged the Proud Boys as they attacked the Capitol. He had said things on social media like, do what must be done. He also directed other Proud Boys to do it again. He wrote, make no mistake, we did this. They also said that he had discussed with associates a plan to have a large crowd in Washington storm government buildings, and that some plan that was dubbed 1776 returns. And they also, in their closing arguments, they said that the Proud Boys viewed themselves as Trump's army, and that they were willing to commit violence on his behalf, and that they were committed to all-out war to keep Trump in power, to stop Biden from taking office. They were really trying to, they were really just trying to say this is Trump's little army, and they were out there to overthrow the government. And the Proud Boys were largely responsible for this. And since Enrique Tarrio was their leader, he is primarily responsible, and that is why he's getting 22 years. But again, those messages like, do it again, make no mistake, we did this, do what must be done. I've heard Maxine Waters say things similar to this, or even Nancy Pelosi or AOC say things kind of similar to this. And where, maybe they're encouraging a protest, they're encouraging people to fight for a certain right, and they'll make these types of comments like, we got to fight, and so when you then take those types of comments and you put the person on trial, like a Salem witch trial, and you then take these phrases even out of context, or even within context, if a person like Maxine Waters or AOC said, we're going to show up to the Capitol, we're going to fight for our rights, or we're going to go to the Supreme Court, right? They did this after Roe v. Wade was overturned, and they'd say, we're going to go to the courthouse, we're going to fight for our rights. Well, if there's an actual fight that breaks out, if there's actual violence that breaks out, is AOC then responsible for that because she said, we're going to go and we're going to fight? If you put her on trial, you could take that sentence out of context or even in context, and you could say, she said, fight for your rights. And the people fought. So therefore, she's responsible because she encouraged it. That's kind of what they're saying here with this Proud Boys, with this evidence, when they're saying, um, that Enrique said things like, do what must be done, do it again, make no mistake, we did this. Even if he was bragging about the actual events that unfolded and maybe was excited, of course, a lot of people got excited. We watched them get excited, climb over the walls, storm into the Capitol. Even if people were very excited doing this, even if people were part of the crowd and enjoyed it and later even gave themselves pats on the backs and high fives, that doesn't mean that they organized an overthrow of the government, that they operated in a conspiracy to overthrow the government, and that that is an act of sedition. That takes extra evidence. And everything that I've learned about this case, it doesn't look like they ever came up with that. Um, Taria was convicted of not only sedition but obstruction of Congress, and by interfering with Congress's ability to count the electoral votes. They're claiming that he obstructed law enforcement, and he also got counts of conspiracy. We're going to go into this a little bit deeper because so it's really insane that, for one, he was not there, and there weren't really any weapons used by the Proud Boys either. In fact, they said that Tario, when they looked through the messages, he even said at one point, let me see if I can find the exact phrase he said, but let me find it here. He instructed members in the video in a conference, he instructed members that they should avoid other protesters, behave in an orderly manner, and never cross police lines. They actually have him saying this, and yet they still were able to get him on these crimes and sentence him to 22 years. This is very similar to when Trump was standing at the podium and he said, we're going to peacefully and respectfully march to the Capitol. And he very specifically said, we're going to peacefully do this. And yet the media and the persecution club went after him saying he was involved in this. This was his fault. He is the reason for the storming of the Capitol, even though he very clearly said, we're going to peacefully do this. They said, it doesn't matter what he said to all of the followers. He meant something else, and they clearly knew it. And that's why they stormed the Capitol, because what? I don't know. He was giving subliminal messaging, or he said some code word. I don't really know how they can twist Trump saying very clearly, we're going to peacefully and respectfully go protest at the Capitol and have our voices be heard. I don't know how that can be twisted into he told them to go and storm the Capitol and basically overthrow the government. That is something similar. They couldn't get Trump on that. They're trying, of course, but they haven't really been able to successfully do it. And so instead, it looks like they've gone after Enrique Tarrio, and they've done the same thing to him. He clearly said it. They've got this of him saying, we should avoid other protesters, behave in an orderly manner, and never cross police lines. They even actually have Proud Boys who were going in and crossing over police lines. They even have some of them saying, we're not supposed to be doing this. In the moment, in the heat of the moment, they were saying, we're not supposed to be doing this, and yet they were doing it anyway. And nonetheless, Enrique still gets charged with sedition, with the attempting to overthrow the government, not even being there, no weapons involved. There was one Proud Boy who did throw a smoke bomb, and there was another Proud Boy who was arrested and for everything, but apparently was armed, and so they then, which many people in America are armed, and this person was armed, and they then obviously if you're someplace and you're not supposed to be in that place, let's say you walk into somebody's home, you trespass. If you trespass, let's say, and you happen to have a gun on you, that then ups the ante. It's no longer just trespassing because you've got a weapon. So that is what they got one of the other Proud Boys for. But otherwise, the people that were arrested from the Proud Boys, look, trespassing is certainly a crime. What they did was criminal. What Enrique Tarrio did, he wasn't there. He didn't actually trespass. So did he do anything criminal by watching and cheering it on. Um, maybe you could say that you aided and embedded people into trespassing. They're really pushing it when they go into sedition and trying to overthrow the government. And they actually tried to get racketeering on him, but or RICO charges on him. But it's just this is really mind-boggling that they've got him now and that they're sentencing him to 22 years for an event he wasn't even at, where none of the Proud Boys actually caused any violence against any other people. I could be wrong on that. I'm willing to hear you out. I would love to hear from you. Email me, kim@kimiversen.com, and give me maybe more perspective on this. But from everything I've followed when it comes to this, many of the January 6th protesters have been, in my opinion, very wrongfully persecuted, very politically persecuted. Yes, crimes were committed, but were they that heinous of crimes to where these people should be rotting in jail for 3 years or 22 years? Yeah, that is, I think, very questionable and debatable, and would definitely, this was just a very shocking sentence, and many people are absolutely celebrating it, and they're happy that it got 22 years, but that just seems extremely excessive to me. All right, we're going to move on with the show. But first, let me tell you about our sponsor, Birch Gold, tonight. We do have Birch Gold back as a sponsor of this show. And I'm a big fan of gold. I'm a big fan of owning it physically. My family, that was the way that my grandmother is north. She's from the north of Vietnam. She had to escape the north to the south and took with her physical gold. When the Vietnam War broke out and it was time for my family to leave South Vietnam, my grandmother took physical gold. This was how she paid her way from area to area to allow my family to survive. They then went to Iran and were living in Iran until the 1978 revolution in Iran, and were able to take physical gold and continue to survive. So I'm a big fan, and I've always been taught from a really young age to own gold, because you just never know if you're going to have to run to a foreign country and seek refuge. And you don't want, maybe your currency is no longer worth anything, but a currency that always speaks is physical gold. And you can now own that physical gold, if you would like, in a tax sheltered retirement account with the help of Birch Gold. Birch Gold is going to help you. You could convert an existing IRA or 401k. You might want to do it that way, maybe from a previous employer, or you into an IRA in gold, or you can also just get physical gold. Now, the 401k and the IRA in gold is physical gold that is kept for you in a safe, or you can keep it for yourself in your own house, in your own safe, however you want to do it. Visit birchgold.com/Kim and get your free info kit on how you can get started in investing in gold. And Birch Gold, they're going to help you by holding your hand through the entire process. They're going to have an expert reach out to you. Birch Gold has an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers. So visit birchgold.com/Kim to get your free info kit on gold. Again, it's birchgold.com/Kim.